Your sensors are correct. Do not adjust your heading. You've discovered the Omega Particle, streaming to the Alpha Quadrant and beyond. Here's your host, the anchorman of the Federation, the Doctor of Dilithium. This is Jonathan Wiegand.
Welcome to the Omega Particle Podcast. Like the man said, I am your host with the mostest, Jonathan Wiegand, and joined here by my great and always steadfast, loyal team headed by Luna, the intern. Maybe one day we'll hire her, but it won't be today. Anyway, we're back with our immaculate, amazing, downright jaw-dropping Deep Space Nine reviews, and today we are reviewing Battle Lines. And I think Battle Lines is a really, well, we'll get to it, interesting piece of work, let's just say that. And I don't know about anybody that's listening, for the first time in a while, I feel like I'm finally coming up for air in my life with work and just with other life stuff. It feels good to just get back to the hobbies. So remember, keep that mental health strong and get back to your hobbies. And speaking of work stuff, I had a friend of mine, very close friend of mine. He went to this work conference thing like a couple weeks back, and they did this Kobayashi Maru situation type of an event. And he works for what does he work for? I think like an insurance company. And this is a room full of who, like you would think would be Star Trek fans. I mean, we have a demographic, don't we, folks? And you think they would an intellectual, very bright group of men and women there. And so they were going to do this Kobayashi Maru type of situation, how do you deal with failure? And then nobody got it. And so it was a disaster. He said it was really funny because no one knows how to deal with failure. Everybody's like, well, I just solved the problem. We're like, that's not the point of the freaking test, everybody. It's how do you deal with failure anyway? And it got me thinking, have you ever had a moment in work where everybody just trashed your interest? Like he said that the leader of this conference was like, who's a Star Trek fan? So there's probably like, I don't know, 100, 150 people in this room. And only like 10 people raised their hands. And which is hilarious. But long story short, good to be back. Good to be here with you and with everybody. We do have a little bit of a change. So we have partnered with Nubeo and their Star Trek watches and their line. They do a lot of great stuff. And Luna, I have to say, I'm wearing the future on my wrist. Finally, there's a watch for people that want to boldly go and also know exactly how long they've been waiting for coffee. It's very futuristic. It tells time, star dates, and if you're running late for anything. And then, I mean, nothing impresses people like saying sorry, traffic on the holodeck, while flashing your precision-crafted Nubeo watch. Look, whether you're navigating the final frontier or just going to your local Trader Joe's, the Nubeo Star Trek watch is your stylish co-pilot. Built with Starfleet precision and just nerdy enough to say, yes, I do know the difference between warp and impulse. Head to Nubeo now and use promo code OPP50 for 50% off. That's an exclusive discount to you beautiful, smart listeners here. That's Nubeo, because space may be infinite, but being late, that's illogical. All right, Luna, let's hit him with that beautiful bean footage. Did you like that tagline? I don't know. I try to make it fun. Like, its ads aren't fun for anybody, so I just throw them in there, but I thought I liked the tagline. So we're not here to talk about watches anymore. We're here to talk about Deep Space Nine Season 1. It was a simpler time, wasn't it, folks? Sisko still had hair. Dax still had that science lady on the edge of boredom energy. And Major Kira was just fueled almost entirely by rage and trauma and sheer willpower. And into that simmering stew of early Deep Space Nine awkwardness and terrible haircuts drops this episode, Battle Lines, the 13th episode of Season 1. And to put it blankly, one of the biggest, so this is what kind of show this is going to be, episodes of the year. So if you haven't watched the episode, let's just set the stage a little bit. This is supposed to just be a casual trip through the Gamma Quadrant. What could go wrong? Am I right? So our adventure begins innocently enough. We have Sisko, Kira, and Bashir. They take a jaunt into the Gamma Quadrant with none other than Kai Opaka, the spiritual leader of the Bajoran people, and up until now, Deep Space Nine's resident benevolent plot device. She's great, heavily beloved. People just like her, and we don't get a reason why. It's just people like her. Oh, that's right. Thank you, Luna. She's telling my ear. They like her because she was the spiritual force and like leader during the occupation. So, and if you've never watched Deep Space Nine, you're just listening to this review, I feel honored that you want to know about Deep Space Nine but not watch it. So thank you for listening. So Opaka has never left Bajor, not even for a weekend getaway. And naturally, she just decides right now, people don't trust this wormhole. It's a perfect time to visit this scary, unknown quadrant through the Prophet's, temple area. So let's just do that. And do you guys know people that way? That people have never left their hometown or their home county? I was raised, if you don't know, in Appalachia country here in the United States, in central eastern Kentucky. And if you're not familiar with that area, it's very poor. And there are a lot of people that just never leave town. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's awesome. And it's just not for me, but I obviously left there. And I think that it's a simpler way to live. And there's some definitely romanticism about it. Big R, romanticism. So this is what stuck out to me on this episode so much, was that she's never left, even during this terrible occupation. And now she just wants to be, I got hair up my butt. Let's go in this wormhole. So I was like, that's kind of weird. But either way, the vibes are just immediately strange. Opaka's very cryptic. And then we have Bashir annoyingly overeager. He's just ready to go, almost like a kid at the Bluey toy aisle. And Kira is glaring at everyone as usual. And Sisko, well, he's mentally checked out because this was just supposed to be a nice diplomatic picnic, nothing big, but now he's going to the wormhole. And then boom! They get shot down by this mysterious orbital defense system and crash land on a planet that makes Mad Max look like a Disney cruise. And the costumes, because it's literally like 1980s Mad Max. I was expecting a pair of assless chaps to show up at any moment. And this is a planet of eternal violence. This is planet hell, with a population of really angry dudes. There's two factions, the Enos and the Weenus. I'm sorry. I had to make the joke. The Enos and the Null Enos, because those great writing decisions there. And they're locked in a death match that never ends. They hate each other so much, they apparently forgot why. Their entire existence is just punching, stabbing, and occasionally regenerating because, plot twist, they can't die. That's right. Thanks to some random alien nanotechnology, and that's their punishment. When they get killed, they pop right back up like a violent whack-a-mole game. It's like a Fortnite Halo game where everybody gets to leave the game, nobody gets to leave the game, and there's no sweet victory. It's just rage, despair, and more knives. Which, just on a random tangent, okay? If you were on a planet with people you hated and you couldn't die, I just feel like I just wouldn't kill them anymore, because it just gets old after a while. Because it's like, oh, I'm expected to believe these people are just going to kill each other for eternity? No. I could see it maybe for the first couple years, but could you imagine just killing the same people over and over and over again? That'd be boring as heck, man. Who would do that? That'd just get old, and eventually I'd be like, let's try to get a way out of here, and then I can kill these dudes for good, which, plot spoiler, is what they eventually try to do. And either way, sorry I'm a rabbit hole. Let's get back to the full part of the review. So Kira has a full-on existential breakdown, and it's fantastic. It's the best existential breakdown on Deep Space Nine so far. Probably in the top 10 moments for great acting by Kira Nerys here. And this happens because Sisko's trying to negotiate like the Federation Boy Scout he is, and Bashir tries to science his way out of this mess, and that's when Kira has her total breakdown. This is where Nana Visser absolutely eats the script alive in the best way possible. Kira, who has spent her entire life fighting, finally sees what endless war really looks like, and it breaks her. She sobs, she yells, she punches walls, she drinks Monster Energy and wears a backwards cap. It's great. In a moment widely praised by fans and reviewers alike, she admits, "I don't know how to live without war." That line, absolute chef's kiss. This is the moment, to me, in the first 13 episodes so far of Deep Space Nine, that Kira stops being this trope and starts becoming a character. Suddenly, she's not this angry rebel lady. She's a woman grappling with the fact that maybe, just maybe, she doesn't know who she is, with all this hatred and violence driving her forward. And major props to Visser here, because this is just an emotional centerpiece of the episode and elevates, to my opinion, battle lines from filler to a feature episode for her, I guess, portfolio, you would say. And you're thinking, well, wait, why does she have this breakdown? Again, if you haven't watched the episode in some time. And that is because Kai Opaka, remember her? The random Appalachian lady that decided to leave home? Well, she dies. Kind of. So, in the crash, Opaka gets killed, and everyone is appropriately horrified. Until, surprise, the planet's nanobots give her the get a death-free card too. But here's the catch. Another twist. Once revived, she can never leave. She becomes part of the Hell planet. And instead of moping about it, she accepts her fate almost immediately. Like, she just lost a luggage bag on Bajoran Airlines. Like, she's like, oh, I'm here and I can never see my loved ones or anybody I've cared about ever again. And I have to sit here in this hellhole with Mad Max and his gang forever? Okay. Like, just no problem. Declares this is her purpose now, to stay behind, and helps with her two factions find peace. And I love, it's very weird, I love that she actually says to Sisko before the episode ends, she goes, I have a feeling we'll see each other again. Spoiler alert, she doesn't. For all 7 seasons, never comes back. This is the last we see of her. She is a distant memory. She's gone. I feel like the only reason they really got rid of her was just, we'll get into that. She's gone now, and she's never coming back. And I feel like, I guess we're not going to get into it. We'll get into it right now. So critics and even myself have pointed out that this exit for Opaka feels very bold, but also very weirdly abrupt. On one hand, it's a powerful choice. You're removing this major spiritual figure from Bajor's post, from the Bajor's political landscape. So early in the series is gutsy. I mean, everybody loved her. And on the other hand, I feel like Kai Opaka deserved a little bit more than, whoop, I guess I live here now, no problem. At least a little crying or some type of like emotional damage that she's going to have to live here. But I feel like the only reason they did that was so they can add to the episodes upcoming in season 1 and season 2 a space pope character that they can have for their tool belt. And if you're a fan of the series, you know what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't gotten there yet. And that is, there is just going to be a race for who's the next Kai. And there's going to be big implications always, all the way to season 7 about it. And it's just awful. And this, I feel like, is forcing that storyline, number 1, but also number 2, forcing Kira and the rest of the Bajoran people to grow up a little bit. And we'll see this episode will ring true. I mean, all the way to season 7, one of the last episodes, this episode is directly impacting that because now we have a Kai Pope race. So one of the really weak spots of this whole episode is the Enos and the Null Enos. And they're just endlessly respawning murder bros. That's the best way to describe it, to be blunt. They are the least interesting part of this episode. I agree that the Enos and the Null Enos they're just painfully generic. They're draped in leftover Mad Max cosplay. They shout cliche dialogue, and they have the depth of a kiddie pool. We're told that they hate each other for generations and there's all this fury behind them, but we never find out why. There's no backstory, there's no nuance, just, you're bad, stab, 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 stab. That robot from Futurama, right, Luna? Stab, stab, either way. And yes, we do get a Jonathan Banks. Mike from Breaking Bad does show up in this episode, and he does his absolute best to add some gravitas, but he's given very little to work with beyond angry leader with regret. It's a shame because the concept of eternal war and forced resurrection is deeply creepy and fascinating all at the same time. But it's just not quite there. The fighting gets repetitive fast, and after a while you just want Sisko to shout, "Can you guys just not for 5 minutes, please?" And I understand why they had those characters, because they wanted to bring in a real theme, and we saw it a little bit with Kira and her breakdown of cycles of violence. And despite the mid-tier antagonist, this episode does deliver a powerful metaphor that the planet becomes a symbol for cycles of violence that are impossible to break, a theme deeply relevant to DS9 as a whole, and let's be honest, very on brand for Kira's personal journey. To me, this just isn't another episode of Star Trek where aliens teach crew a lesson of the week type of thing, almost like a Voyager-esque. This is a bitter pill that some wars will never end. Some people don't want peace. And sometimes the best you can do is just choose not to participate and get the heck out of Dodge. It's a little dark. It's a little unsettling. And if you can get past the terrible antagonist of the episode, I think you'll finally see that this is a statement of intent for Deep Space Nine. This is going to be a show that will tackle themes that the next generation usually avoided, which is great for us as fans, because I think the best sci-fi, and I've said this a million times if you've been a long-time fan, the best sci-fi is the sci-fi that tells us something about our own life and our own world and shows us through metaphor, through story, whatever. And the final verdict for this episode is, I think it's very bleak, I think it's very imperfect, but I think it is memorable. So, did I like it? Yeah, I did, but with some hesitation. It's a great example of an episode that it looks better on paper than what it actually is. The production values are mesh, not very good. Guest stars are forgettable, which is really hard to do with the talent that Jonathan Banks brings. And the villain factions are so bland, they could be called Team Beige. But Kira's emotional arc was stellar. Kai Opaka's bittersweet goodbye was kind of haunting, I would say. And this grim tone that foreshadows Deep Space Nine's reputation for mature storytelling is definitely laying the foundation here. And again, everybody, this is not peak Deep Space Nine yet, but it's a key piece of the puzzle and of the foundation. It told us the show wasn't afraid to get ugly, to explore what happens when conflict is endless, and to ask hard questions with no easy answers. Final rating on this, I would have to give it maybe a 4.0 out of 5. And the only reasons why it was, you could rewatch for Kira's breakdown, and that's about it. I would never go camping on this planet in any way, shape, or form. But it makes me think, if this people created this planet as a punishment for these two factions, do the people are immortal now because they just won't ever die? Is that it? Do they have that technology for themselves and their own personal planet that they just we've figured out how to stop people from dying? If they lived in peace, this would be a paradise. You would just never die. Or a hell, planet hell. Depends on your perspective. But they never talk about this, and it never was brought up in any Star Trek episode that I can think of. No Deep Space Nine, no one ever thinks of, hey, remember that planet where no one could die? Maybe we should go back there and look into see how they did that. Maybe that would be something we want to investigate or look into. But nope, nothing there. And that has been our review of Deep Space Nine Battle Lines. Thank you so much for listening. And Luna, let's wrap it up. Again, thank you all so much for listening. And that wraps up our transmission from the deepest, farthest reaches of the Alpha Quadrant. We've had it all today. We've had some dark moments. Yes, we've had some caffeinated Raktajino debates, but I think we've covered it all on battle lines. And remember, in space, no one can hear you scream, but they can hear you if you leave us a 5-star review. So that's right. If you want to subscribe, like, whatever, follow us on all frequencies and social media, and join us this week as we cover To the Journey Voyager documentary. I'm very excited about that. I've already watched a few, probably like a good, about halfway through. First takes are that it's very jumpy, but I'm very hopeful for the closing half. So we'll have to see. But again, thank you all so much for listening, for following us on social media, and going where we've always wanted to go further in the Star Trek universe with new insights, fresh debates, and probably at least one bad Neelix joke a week. And until then, everybody, keep your phasers on stun, your coffee on hot, and your transporters in working condition. And second star to the right, straight on till morning.